Hey everybody, we are back again here. Winter Seminar Series, week 5. This week we're on the short game. So short game is obviously an important part of the game. Um, it's something that I know I really enjoy teaching. Eric is going to be talking a lot tonight. Eric Childs, and he's
Hi.
gonna. There he is, and Luke's with us, and um, he's going to give you a little more in-depth look at the short game. And it's a great place to be creative. It's a great place to use your visuals. Most of us have like a practice screen, us teachers, and at Keller we have a nice ridge right in the middle of our practice screen, and it really helps with creativity to start to view the shots you want to hit, how they're going to curve, all that fun stuff. So this is a time to get creative in short game, and with a lot of different shots, which we're gonna hit tonight, and we're excited to get going. So here we go. So just a quick little something, short game, why it matters. All right. I think we all kind of know, but we'll show you a couple stats to drive that home. We're going to talk some shot types around the greens, putting, and then some half shots. So Eric's going to utilize his TrackMan quite a bit, and we all have those launch monitors, whether they're FlightScope, TrackMan, or CG2 possibly. So really helpful tools to help us with that. So quick little video of our guy having a little shot here, just to show you how pure he is. The chili whacker. There we go. And then so we're going to talk a little averages. So greens and regulation. It's basically really insightful to understand that tour professionals, LPGA Tour, PGA Tour, are not hitting 18 greens around. They're not even hitting 16, 17, 15, or on average less than 14 or 13. So short game gets real simple to understand that you better be good at it to save some shots when we have the best players in the world that are missing on average, 5 to 6 to 7 greens around. So this stat's pretty clear here. Luke, what do you talk about your players with greens and reg, and why short game is important as it is?
Yeah, I mean, you see a big range. Some players are hitting 15, 16 greens around. They're great ball strikers. They have a lot of birdie putts. But I was never one of those guys growing up, and so I stress the ability to get it up and down and learn to scramble. And I know you guys, you've seen you go. I remember playing some big U.S. Open qualifiers, and I was playing with some old guys that weren't hitting it very good, and they were hitting 8 greens around, 8 birdie putts, and they were still shooting under par. It's unbelievable how well some players can score, and I think, I mean, Chili played with you. You're a great ball striker, but you're also so good around the greens. It saves you a lot of strokes, doesn't it?
Yeah, as a short hitter, I kind of rely on my short game. I don't know how many younger kids out are watching this. So I'm about 5'5" and I weigh about a buck 40. So I was always the little guy growing up, and I figured out really young that I really liked golf because if I could be good at putting and chipping, I could really shoot lower scores than maybe I probably should have. So what I found is I could compete with the kids that were way bigger and taller and probably more athletic. Because the closer we got to the hole, the better I got, and I really found that got me off to a good start and got me competitive when I was like 12, 13. And then I just kind of kept with it, and I've always really liked the short game, which I think is half of it. I mean, I just love working on it. I come into work at 6 in the morning and go from 6 to 7, 7:30 when there's nobody here, just chipping and putting uh, about every other day. And that's kind of my relaxing time, but just to keep my short game really sharp. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd second Luke. You have different players that do different things. If you're a great ball striker, hit a lot of greens. It's a little different, but yeah, either way, on an off day, you're going to have to get the ball up and down if you want to shoot good scores. So that's kind of an easy part to why it is as important. And then some of the shot types, Eric will go more in depth about kind of pitching, chipping, lob shots, sand shots, and putting. Okay.
And I was going to ask if there's kids watching right now, and I think Luke, are you watching the screen if somebody has questions?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. So how many people know the actual difference between a chip and a pitch? Because I'm a golf pro and I still mix them up and use them interchangeably when I really shouldn't. So for those of you that are wondering what's the difference between a pitch and a chip, just think of softball pitching. If you pitch a softball, you throw it up in the air and it kind of goes up and then it hits and stops. And a chip and run is like a bump and run, is the one that you just get on the green and let it roll. So that's kind of how I remember this as a golf pro, right? I shouldn't have to remember that, but that's how I remember. It's just pitching is like a softball pitch, and a chip and run is a bump and run.
Yeah, great. That's a good question. I think we all probably get on a regular basis is the difference between the two. So yeah, so we'll transition into putting, right? Eric, I'll let you kind of run with this page and
Sure.
tell us what you have here.
Sure. So when I did this slide, I thought the thing I asked a lot of my junior players, high school, junior high, not yet like college level, but I'll ask, how many putts around do you have? And do you realize that putting is 1/2 of the game? So in a perfect round of golf by an expert, they would hit 18 greens, they would have 18 birdie putts, and they would have 2 putts per green. So in a round of 72, you would have 36 putts. In a perfect world, and even a more perfect, you'd make half your birdie putts, right? But half the game is putting. So really, 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 if you're young, you got to realize half this game is putting. And again, as a short hitter, I figured that out really fast. Is if I could make more putts than the big guys, I could chew off a lot of shots. And there's 2 things, and it's very simple. I think putting is mind-blowingly simple if you don't get overcomplicated with it. But there's just 2 things that make great putters: is their line that they start the putts on, and the speed that they hit it. And that really, if somebody says what's the most important part of putting, it's like, well, line and speed. And I will ask the group or all of you out there, what do you think is more important to tour players, the line or the speed? And I'll give you a hint. Tour players don't have a lot of dead straight putts. So if there's anybody that would care to guess, and let's say 25% of the people, 30% are going to say, well, line is most important. Tour players will actually say that the speed to them is more important. Yeah. Was that Drake? Perfect. Your speed, if you know what your speed is, then you can predict how much curve there will be. And when you hit putts too hard, it often doesn't have time to curve. And I don't know how many, do you guys teach aim point? I'm not an aim point instructor, but they have some really interesting stuff on controlling the speed, giving it time. And when you visualize, seeing how much curve that you can plan on. So if you hit it too hard, you'll typically be on the high side of the hole and not give it enough time to break. The last part of this is aim is often neglected. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you what I do with a lot of people in my short game schools. I put a laser and a little mirror on their putter face, and from 10 feet away, the majority of golfers that I teach, and I'd say the average handicap, these are adults, they're 15 handicappers, they average anywhere from 10 inches to a foot offline, left or right from the hole on a 10-footer. So they're typically very bad aimers, and good putters are almost always really good aimers. So do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, although there are some good players that might not aim well, but they aim consistently bad, don't they?
Sure. Yeah.
And then have a stroke that corrects for it. But that's rare, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, consistency is what you're always after. And I'm not, like, when I teach putting, I don't really look, at grip that much. I just kind of look and see what the putter is doing, and do they repeat? And I think every golf instructor is going to say they want to see repeatability more than just random things.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Consistency and repeatability is very important.
yeah.
Some cool stats here. I'll let you run through these, Eric.
Yeah. Well, I have a little story from college, and I'll try and make it quick. I can get really wordy and talk too much. But when I was in college, I was not a very good ball striker. I probably averaged 5 to 6 greens in regulation. And it didn't bother me because I could still shoot 1 or 2 under par because I thought it was normal to chip in once a round. Okay. And then the other thing I thought was that if I had a 10 or 15 or 20 foot par putt, I knew before I hit it, I'd already visualized and made it 10 times while everybody else was doing their thing. And when I made 10, 15, 20 footers, it didn't shock me. So one day we had a gentleman that taught tour players come to do a seminar at Fair State where I went to college. And he said, in front of the class, and there was like 150 of us, he said, "Hey, who's the best putter here?" And being the little hitter, a lot of the older guys are like, "That guy over there." And he said, "Hey, let me ask you, where do you think you're 50-50 miss or make?" And I just went, 15, 20 feet. And this guy laughed. He literally laughed. And I had no idea why I was laughing. So he said, "Can anybody confirm what he's saying?" And the majority of the guys in the room were like, "Yeah, I've watched him do it." And he then put these stats on. So this right here, you will see that tour players are 100% from 3 feet and under. And the high handicap players that I meet, maybe guys that shoot in the 90s and the 100s, are missing 3, 4, 5 of these around. And another thing too, with all my junior golfers is no gimmies. We don't do gimmies at the town course. You don't do gimmies until you're older and past competitive golf. Tour players are 80% from 5 feet, okay, which is pretty good. They're 60% from 7 feet, which is really good. That's amazing, actually. And they're 40% from 10 feet. Well, if you think about that, when this guy asked me in college, "Where are you 50-50 from?" And I was saying 15 to 20 feet, he thought I was crazy, and I possibly was. But when I saw the stats of the best players in the world, I was like, wow, at the time, they were only 50-50 from 6 feet. That was in 1996. And as soon as I saw the data and those numbers, I never putted as good again, ever. That's a fact. Because I never paid attention. And when I did miss, I just went, unbelievable that I missed. It must have hit a blade of grass or something. I never really took the blame, and I didn't get too upset. But my mentality was I should make everything I look at. And then when I started to see these stats, it actually kind of rattled me and it hurt me. So if there's any of you that are out there watching this and you're saying, "Oh, I'm better than that," I hope that you are. And I want you to keep thinking that you are. Don't just take this stuff as, gospel. These are stats, right? And if you look at the guy who wins last week on tour, I guarantee his putting was a little better than the average. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, we had a meeting the other night. Brent, are you with us? Got him? No?
I think he was traveling.
Okay. So he was talking about just, basically golfers understanding that, let's take that 80% from 5 feet. Like if that's you're doing really well, right? Like if we can make, and even if you're 60% from 7 feet, if you start to make those putts, your scores are going to go down. We don't have to make 15 to 20 footers all the time, or even 10 to 15 footers. If we run them in, great. But if we're consistently making 7 footers and in, you'll be surprised how fast your scores will drop.
Yeah, and from a practice standpoint, you're probably going to get into this, Chili, but I don't know if you need to practice inside of 3 feet very much. If you're good in that range, you should finish them all. But the money putts are 3 to 12 feet, aren't they? You don't need to practice 15 footers because tour players two putt those anyway, right? So yeah. I know I personally very rarely recommend practicing from 15 to 20 feet. You just make some, you hope to 2-putt most of them.
Agreed. That's a big, I'm the same way. I don't putt much from 10 feet, 12 feet outside of that. practice.
Yeah, there's a one thing I heard on the green this winter. I was playing in the winter series down in Port St. Lucie, and we were talking of 50, 60, 70 footers. And one of the really good players, his name's Jerry Tucker. He's written books on short game and putting. He was saying at 50, 60, 70 feet, he's trying to get 1 foot from the hole for every 10 feet away. So if he's got an 80 footer, he's just trying to get it inside of 8 feet. And I go back to thinking in college, if I had an 80 footer, you know, outside of 3 feet, I was devastated. I thought that was bad. And it's really not. So, I think, you know, if you look at the numbers, and greens have gotten better, I think that's why these stats are better. Tour players are 50-50 from farther out than when I was in college, because the greens are way better is what I think.
Yeah, and just take these stats, write them down, know them, just get your expectations in check. And yeah, like Luke said, 12 and in, you start making those putts, you'll be very happy, and you'll see your scores drop. Yeah, a few things for you, Eric, to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
A great putter.
Yeah, well, so I have a lot of kids out at the town course, and some other juniors that I help, that they come and they say, well, I want to be a great putter. And the first thing, and if you don't pay attention to what I'm going to say the next 5 minutes, just hear this. Every little guy or little gal when I meet them, I go, hey, who's the best putter in the world? And they go, well, Jordan Spieth or Tiger Woods. And I'll go, Your answer now that you've met me is me, as in you. So let's just say little Jimmy walks up later, a week later after we've talked about this, and he's 8 years old on the putting green. And I'll go, hey, Jimmy, who's the best putter in the world? And he'll look across the green and go, me. And all the adults will laugh. And I'm just trying to get them positive, so that, because if you don't think you're a good putter, you're not gonna be. And I think, you know, why not think you're a really good putter? I mean, if you are not, you're always working to get better. And that's why we keep stats. But putting to me is really mental. And so let's look at the physical skill here on the left side. You see aim, to me, that's your vision. Anytime there's people that fit putters, they talk about your left eye, right eye dominance. And that does matter. So good putters are good aimers. The other thing that I find is my really good putters, they hit the sweet spot every time. They don't hit a lot of toe and heel shots. And if you know the ball, every time you hit a toe shot or a heel shot, you actually put some tilt on a ball, like for instance, with a driver and your irons. And the same happens with a putter. The third thing that really good putters have is that face control. So they deliver it square every time, right? And the farther the putt, the more difficult that gets. If there's anybody that's ever really good from like 6 feet and they're telling me they're a bad putter, I then move them back to 50 feet. And then I want to see, do they miss right, left, or do they miss left, 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 left? And I just want to see that consistency of that face. And really good putters know exactly where that face is. And then from there, I take people back and we do some distance control. And there is times, and I'll show you the ladder drill later. I'm gonna show everybody some of the drills. But you know, I'll have them hit, say, 3 putts to 20 feet, 3 putts to 25, to 30, to 35, and see if they can bunch those golf balls up. And if one goes 25 and one goes 35, well, then we've got a distance control problem and not so much an aim and a face problem. So that's real common. Over to the other side, the mental skills, going back to the best putters I've ever met. And some of the best putters around the town course are 12-year-olds because they haven't missed any putts. They don't remember their misses. And all they just do is visualize and see themselves making it. And they do. And it doesn't surprise them. And I just love to talk to little kids when I'm watching them putt. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's so fun. It can be the tall kids, the young kids, the girls, the boys. It doesn't matter. The young kids are always really, what's the word? They're just kind of artistic in how they go about it. They visualize, which is the second thing there. So they see what they're going to do before they do it. And as you get older, I think some of us get that visualization and creativity knocked out of you. And so a lot of my adults, I spend time, you know, having them close their eyes in practice. the third thing on the bottom right there, it says, see it, feel it, trust it. When I was in college, the kids that were, bigger hitters that weren't beating me, but they thought they should, they would kind of laugh because under my lid of my hat, it said, see it, feel it, trust it. And anytime I had a putt when I was nervous or I knew I could win a tournament, and I had a couple holes left, I'd just take that rim and look at it and be like, hey, see it, feel it, trust it. That's your job. That's all you're going to do. So before I hit a putt then, and even these days, I've made it in my mind 10 times before I actually hit it. And let's just say the 11th time I hit it, and it usually rolls on the same line, does the same thing, goes in it. I'm never really surprised. I mean, I'm happy when it goes in, but I've had people that are like, I thought you'd be more excited about that. And I'm like, I just made it 11 times, So then the last thing is keep your stats to improve. I have a lot of people that I ask, I go, how many putts do you average? Barely anyone knows. My good players, the college players, and my really good high school players, they know. They'll say, I'm averaging under 30 putts, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty solid. And Luke or John, you could tell me maybe, I know to break 100, it's like don't take any penalties, hit more greens, and then limit your 3 putts. Well, as you get your putts under 36, under 33, and under 30, that's how you keep it in the under 80 and start shooting even par or better. So do you guys know the numbers on that? Because I'm not positive.
What is it? What is it to shoot even par, averaging what, about 31 putts? And then
it's got to be right around 30.
Yeah, 30 maybe, and then to break 80 is about 33 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I think from my takeaway, even with your presenting here, so 12 feet and in, right? And stop those 3 putts. If you're having technique problems and you're having troubles rolling the ball or getting it online, you can obviously see a coach and instructor, but you go a long way just to stop 3 putting and start making even putts from 5 and 6 feet and in. You'll see some pretty dramatic changes. So yeah, let's transition into the chip versus the pitch.
Well, do you guys, you want me to show some of the putting drills that I do here at the town course?
Let's do
this.
John, I'll send it over to you here. There you go.
So I'm going to move this. I hope I don't get anybody dizzy, but I'm going to show you guys some of the drills that I do with people. So you all can hear me, right?
Yep.
All right, everybody see that? Can everybody see that golf ball right here? Whoops. I have a golf ball that's got half of it is a dark color and the other part is white here. And if I hit this ball crooked, it's going to tumble this way. And if I hit it really end over end, you'll see a nice straight roll. So one of the drills that I'm almost always working on when I putt is I just use a ball that's half black on one side, half white on the other. And if you guys watch this, let me move this here. I'm going to hit a putt, what I think probably is a pretty good roll here. You guys see that?
Yep.
So that's pretty end over end. And then if I get people that are having trouble with their putting, watch this ball. And some of you that are watching, I'm just going to cut across it like this. Okay. So that's kind of the Billy Mayfair action. So do you see how that ball kind of tumbled and tilted sideways? So I've met putters that are actually good and do that every time. And if you're young, you might not know who Billy Mayfair is. I mean, anybody, Luke or Reggie, you want to talk about Billy Mayfair? Because it was definitely not pretty.
Yeah. Consistent putter, right? But consistently had some slice spin on it. And what Luke said earlier, it's not always square, but they are repeating.
Yeah, I remember talking to David Orr. You guys know him probably as a putting guru, and he said sometimes the best putters on tour were the guys that had a bad path and a bad face that matched. And some of the worst putters were just perfectly on plane, but didn't have face control. So, that's something to keep in mind. But when you talked about the fundamentals, Chili, you said, and I agree, face is way more important than path, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Let me interrupt you here, Chili. I got a question.
Got a question?
It's back to
Yeah.
our ball striking and our greens and rag. Isn't it dependent on how many greens you hit? If you have 31 putts but only hit 7 greens, you can't shoot even par.
Yeah, it does matter on how many greens you hit. And that was one of the things later in my life when I became a better ball striker and started hitting 14 greens. I would leave with a really bad taste in my mouth because I wasn't having 23, 24 putts like I had in college. I was having 31 and I was shooting better scores, but they weren't nearly as exciting. So yeah, that does matter. If you're hitting 6 greens, yeah, you have 12 times to go up and down to get it close. And let's just say of 6 of those, you're getting it within 3 feet, and those are kick-ins, right? So there's your 1 putts right there. So yeah, that actually is a good question. Better ball strikers typically can have more putts than the guy who's got the kind of the cruddy little game who doesn't hit as many greens in regulation, but can really chip and putt. And that's how I used to play in college. I was not good at all. Tee to green.
If you guys want to keep track of your putting stats, putts gained is the way to do it. And there's a table out there that will show you what percent, just as we went through. And I do that after every round, and I do it in my head because I can remember the length of my first putt. So like, let's say I make an 8-footer on the first hole. Now I'm half stroke ahead because that's 1.5. They make 50% from there. So you can do that math. You could write it on the scorecard. I have all my kids kind of keep track of that, but that's a much better measure than putts per green. Because as the commenter made, if you hit every green, it's very different. You're gonna have a lot more putts.
Yep, love that. So one of the other things that I use here at the town course, you guys are gonna see this. I got this at the PGA show. Can you see that it's this little metal piece that's got a little bit of an arc to it, and then there's a little piece that goes onto your putter, and I just want to have it close enough. Can you see how it keeps you from wiggling? And can you hear it or not? Can you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah. So what I do, depending on if somebody's got a kind of a wicked little stroke and they're having a lot of trouble, I'll get this set up and then I'll put that on their putter. And the goal is to try and not make any noise. And you can hear that stroke should look pretty good from that vantage point. Can you guys see that?
It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you get a very end over end stroke. You really can't screw it up. So now let's just say this thing was $60, okay? Here is the Mac Daddy over here. And I've had people call from a couple 100 miles and say, I heard you have one of these, which this is a Z Factor. And the guy that made this famous was Vijay Singh, was trying to be perfect. Well, if you see this, I've got these little metal pieces, and I'm going to take this off briefly. Sorry. So you stick these on here, and now I can get anyone, can you see it from that angle, to actually do a perfect stroke. So there's people that cut across it that think this thing is just terrible. They go, oh my word, what is that? And I'm like, well, that's perfection, So if somebody says, well, what is a perfect stroke feel like? That putter is moving, and this is on a slight arc. You can go in here and turn these and make it straight. You can make a bigger arc, and it doesn't matter whether you have a face balanced putter or a heel toe weighted, and we all know that matters in how you putt, and we can get to that maybe later. That's probably getting a little advanced, isn't it?
Yeah.
You guys with me there?
Yeah.
So so one of the other things I'm going to show you from face on, when I'm using this, I just want to show you this. This is something you'll hear a lot about from good putters. A lot of guys will say this putter aims at their belly button and stays at their belly button. Do you see that? Everybody see that? And to me, there's a lot of release of that putter. I putt a little more this way, where I keep and pull the handle towards the hole, which I believe is how Rory does it, which is not ideal from what I'm reading. So if you see this, that putter is locked into this machine, And when I do this, does everybody see that? So that to me is a really kind of a strange feel. It's not something I'm used to. I'm more of a straight back, straight through putter. But there's a lot of wrist action to that. And I get kind of locked up and limit the movement of the face because I just want the face to be pointed where I want it all the time. So, but again, it's up to you. I don't know, like you guys, it doesn't matter to me whether you're straight back, straight through, but I just want to see repeatability. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
good? So
Great.
now I'm going to show you a little aiming trick here. And if you want to talk for a second, you guys take a minute. I'm going to set this up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see a lot of different strokes out there, don't you? And I think going back to the history of golf, there is a wide variety. Back in 60s and 70s, you saw a lot more wrist action and pop strokes. When greens are slower, we know players adapt and have a little more wrist usage in their strokes. And then greens are so fast and smooth on tour that people are smoother and slower with their tempo. What do you see there, Riggy?
Yeah, I agree. A lot of different things. And if you can make putts, then you should keep putting that way. And depending on what kind of stroke you have, Eric was referring to this, whether it's a face balance putter or not, those are things that teachers can help you with. But putting is one of those things. I'll get a putter in, and if they're making putts, not much of a need to change much. So if you're making putts, keep after it. If you need a little help, there's some easy ways to do that. And Eric's going to continue to show you a couple of things to help.
Yeah, so right now, it was years ago, I went to, who are the fitters off of Bloomington there? And they had what's that?
Totally Driven?
Yeah, Totally Driven. I went through a putter fitting with them and it was genius. I absolutely loved it. And the one thing we got done with the clubs and the guy said, "Hey, can I check your putting? Because, I know that you're a good putter." And I was like, "Well, let's try. Yeah, let's see." So he did this drill to me and it was really funny. I'm going to show you what happened. So let me aim this. And can you guys see there's a little white pail over there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And there's a little like an arrow. And then I've got this laser right here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you guys see that? You probably see it right there, right? So you take the ball and I've got a mirror on the face, right? So this is flat. And I get people to aim their putter. And then when we take this away, and I'm going to aim it like some people that I teach do. And can you see where that's aimed?
Mm-hmm.
See, it's over left by that ATM machine. So the first time that I got fit like this, the guy said, "Oh, your putter's left." He goes, "Is this how you putt?" And I said, "No, wait a second. Let me do a forward press." And I did this. And now do you see where that's aimed?
Yep.
See it? So instead of being over here, when I just sat it there, when I did my forward press, I actually shut the face and then my putter was aimed perfectly. And then the guy said, "Oh, that makes sense." He's like, "Yeah, you have to have a little shaft lean." Or me personally, that helped me aim. So when I just sat the putter down, I was a foot to the left and still probably am. But as soon as I lean the putter and get my shaft lean, then all of a sudden it was aimed really perfectly. And it was Andy over there. He's like, "Yeah, that's pretty good, man." He's like, "That's one of the best I've seen at aiming." And, it's a 10-footer, I figured. But it's not necessarily how you sit the putter down. It's once you get that lean, and some people do that forward press and some people don't. Depends on the neck of the putter. And again, we could go to the moon with all this stuff. But what I want to just stick with is we got line and we got speed. Okay, so if you need to know where you're aimed, you can use a laser for that. And then the other thing that you want, and that I almost always use daily, because I don't use that super fancy Z factor, but I do use this right here is the putting arc. Can you see this? So I got the putting arc, and then I'm just rolling the ball, and you'll see that roll end over end. Everybody see that? Hopefully you can see that, right?
Yep.
So if I take that away, my goal is always, if I take that away and roll this ball and get that nice end over end, then I'm not too concerned about, about my stroke. Whoops, sorry about the camera there. So there's one other thing I want to show you, and this is what I was putting to. You see these pieces of tape on the floor? Those are about every 2.5 feet. That's for the ladder drill. So even though I was putting to this hole right here, sometimes with the kids and folks that are having trouble controlling their distance, we do the ladder drill. So those of you, when we do it outside, I always use string. I make these little boxes. It looks like a little football field. So these are some of the things that I do at the town course with players that come in, kind of complaining of their putting. But it's line and it's speed, and you don't have to be perfect. You just really want to have, a good positive attitude, visualize, see it, and then do it. And the more you visualize and do it, the more the two kind of become one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I've taught with most of you guys, and I've been out to Brent's place and with Chili. I think we all use the ladder drill. It's a huge help to just get people to understand speed, and you don't have to think about it. You just step the ladder and keep going. So I do have another question here we'll get after. Says my contact on the putter tends to vary from pure contact to horribly offline a lot of the time. What do you think would be a good way to correct that? So yeah, a consistency problem, obviously here, Chili.
Yeah, I'd go out and I'd get something like this. So this is called the putting arc. You can get them online. You see that? Mm-hmm. Or you can even make your own with a 2x4. There's a little bit of an arc to this one. I don't know if you can see it. It's not dead straight. So there's a tiny little arc. And all I would do is I would put my putter against this, right? And just go back and forth, because you have that little arc and you're always on it. You're not coming off and across it. Your putter's just scraping on it the whole time. So you can force yourself to hit it on the sweet spot every time. I don't know if you guys, if I was going to guess, I'd say your alignment probably is getting open or closed somehow. I know Brent talks a lot about kind of forearm, having the forearm and the shaft match up. Yeah, unless I saw it, I don't know. I don't want to say the Y word. I had those for 1.5 years. We won't talk about that. If you start really missing the sweet spot and anticipating the hit and peaking, I'm guilty of that. You would think as a seasoned tournament golfer that I know to keep my eyes still and not peak, but I think everybody does it. So that's whenever I'm missing the face, I'm typically moving my head. Well, what do you guys think?
I like, I don't have a putter here, but I like putting rubber bands on the toe and the heel and just giving you a sweet spot about this big in the winter. Just learn to pure it in the winter, right? If there's a rubber band here and here, you're going to learn how to hit it in the middle. And I would hit a lot of putts, long, short, with that rubber band on all winter long. Why not?
Yeah, I agree. That's great feedback when you're putting, and a lot of that we talked about external cues. You get those rubber bands on there and you hit one, you get the feedback immediately. So
yeah, and I think doesn't Pels have a thing where you put these little rubber bands over it, and then there's a bigger one, skinnier one, and an expert level. And I think people would be amazed. I was blown away. Well, even if you look, you can see Tiger's putter. Anybody ever seen the sweet spot on his putter?
Yeah. There's
only one little spot, and it's just a couple dimples. I mean, that guy's been wearing out the sweet spot forever. And if you just think about it athletically, you don't have to be gifted to hit the sweet spot every time, and you don't have to be gifted to aim it well if you know how you set it up. And then it's just how hard you hit it. But hitting the sweet spot every time, especially when you're nerving out, can be a challenge.
I got one other thing I want to tell people is, like, don't be afraid to try some different styles. I've tried long putter. I've tried belly putter. I went, now I'm arm lock, and arm lock was unbelievably easy. So there's other ways to putt, and it honestly felt like cheating. I didn't practice more than 2 hours all year, and I putted the best I have since college. So there are ways to make the game easier with equipment, different ways to hold it. And like claw is great. I mean, there's different stuff you can try. So
We got a creative question that just came through. Can you use the rubber band drill with your irons?
there's better ways to do it than that. That I don't think you're going to feel it too much there. I would put some impact tape or use the spray and find out where you're hitting it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
foot spray. Put some foot
Yeah.
spray on there, and you'll see little marks on there.
Yeah, Dr. Scholl's foot spray, guys, is a great tool for iron contact.
Yes, and one thing is very important for the parents. If you are gonna get the 2-for-1 foot spray, that's the clear stuff. So don't get the clear one. It's Dr. Scholl's. It's in a yellow can. Spray a little on your hand, and it puts a white coating because it's chalk.
And be careful using it too much in your garage without ventilation.
It smells so good.
Too good.
Yeah.
All
So-
right, go ahead, John.
Yeah, great info on putting. Like all of us really enjoy putting. And it's something you want to be good at. Like everybody's game's a little different. There's great tour players that aren't great putters. But yeah, pick out some of these training aids we used, some of the basic stuff. And I think putting's a place where you can really put some good work in on your own. And if you still can't get things to turn around, obviously call, a local coach or one of us, and, we'd be happy to help. And then, so once we get off the green and putting, and feel free to ask any questions you have for putting as we go still. If something comes up, feel free to send a question at us, but we'll transition here a little bit to the pitch versus the chip. And I'll let Eric get after that as well.
Sure. All right. So for years, I've been doing short game schools on weekends. Super popular. I had like 6 people, all different levels of golfers. I've had anywhere from a +3 up to beginner golfers that, they don't even know which end to hold. And so I kind of keep track of them. I don't have stats on them, but the average player is about a 15 to 18 handicapper. And when they show up, the majority of these players pitch the ball. They think that you grab that 60-degree wedge and you slide under there and you hit it high. And so, and I don't mean to pick on junior golfers because I did this too until I got to college when I figured out I used to hit them high. I just thought I'd hit them high and they'd land and stop fast and it looked cool. And greens were slower back then too. So I think you probably maybe wanted to carry it a little farther, but greens today on average are way better. And what I've found is that if I can get players to hit lower shots to get it on the green, which is that chip and run, the bump and run, if there's any of you out there that are 13, 14, 15 years old, and you go out and you play with your grandpa, or you play with, a couple old guys that are part of the men's league, and you get paired up with them, and you're like, oh, I'm going to dominate these guys. And then it gets done, and you're like, wow, I shot 78, and one of the old guys shot 75, and he didn't even hit it good. And then you go back and you notice that guy was probably hitting a 7-iron around the greens, putting if he was a little off, maybe on the collar. And even now people use hybrids. So I'm a big fan. I didn't used to be, of getting the ball on the green fast and letting it roll out unless I've got something to carry or I've got a really perfect lie in the rough, which kind of leads me into that bottom part of this slide here. Is the shot that you choose should be decided by your lie and how close the pin is to the collar. So, if you got a bunker in front of you and the pin's you're short-sided, go ahead, grab your 60, open it up, and if you got a nice fluffy lie, hit that high one and stop it in there. But if you get up to your ball and it's sitting kind of on a tight fairway, and you grab 60-degree wedge and open it where you have a little bounce exposed, some bad things can happen there. So once I got to be about 35 years old, I started to think more about train wreck avoidance is what I call it. It's like, I don't want big mistakes where I hit the ball with the belly of the club, hit it in the forehead and scoot it across. And then I'm all upset. And then I chip the next one up and 3-putt, and then I make a double. And that's not a good way to go about it. So I'm guilty of grabbing hybrids. I played in Florida this winter, and even this year, I didn't do it last year, but I putted from I was 30 feet off sometimes, just hitting putter to get it up within, I don't know, 3-4 feet, just make an easy par and get out of there. So if you notice, a veteran of golf typically is going to hit it lower because it's easier. It's just less can go wrong. It's not that they don't have the talent. It's just an easier shot. So what are your opinions on that, John?
Yeah, so, just like you said, one of the first things I see like advanced players do is look at their lie, even in the fairway or the rough on full shots. Like definitely around the greens, you have to look at your lie. If you have how much grass is behind your ball is a big deal. If you're pretty clean, if you can put the club on the back of the ball, that's great. If there is a fair amount of grass that's going to come between your club and the ball, those are things that you absolutely have to know. And like this bottom bullet says, that basically is the first thing you're looking at, and that or where the hole is located. And if we don't know that, then we don't really have any business hitting the shot yet, because we can't hit the same shot from a good lie as we can a poor lie. So right away, get into what that lie is telling you.
I'm doing a Zoom call.
So
Sorry, guys.
here we go. I got another one. How do you pick a landing spot when hitting a lower shot and knowing how much it will spin or jump off the face? Luke, what do you think?
Experience. You just do it over and over, and there's so many factors. I think, like even when you go play down south and you have Bermuda greens with grain, if your ball is landing into the grain, it's going to check up. Like you got to know, are you landing into the grain or downgrade? It's really advanced, but those are important skills. And that first hop is really critical. So if your ball's landing on a downslope, it's a big hop. If it's landing in an upslope, it'll kill it. So that first hop is really key, and you just do it over and over. What I think is really underrated is kind of diversity of practice and doing lots of different shots. So you get really familiar, and it goes into that, call it right brain if you want to, but it's just creative shot making. It's pick a spot, maybe call it a little hula hoop you're trying to land it into, guess. And if you land it there and it works out great, if not, adjust, and then maybe do 1 or 2, 3 shots and then move on to the next one. Just know that block practice, doing the same shot over and over for a short game will not make you very good. It's really bad practice. So you have to switch your targets frequently.
Yes, 100%.
I think one thing too, do you guys know the game 21?
Mm-hmm.
You guys heard of that one? That's one that I do a lot with my competitive players. And when I can get my kids that are 15, 16, 17 to beat up on me at that's when I know they're getting good. And I've had numerous kids beat me at that. And it's like, wow, because that's what that is. If you don't know what that is, that's 9 shots. You just put 9 balls around the green randomly, some good lies, some bad. And you have to get those 9 balls up and in 21 shots or better. So if you got up and down every time, that's 18. And the odds of doing that, if they're all random, is pretty low, right? But if you can get, what is it? You got to get 3 of them. I guess I'm kind of blanking on the math. You get 3 mistakes, I guess, 3 non-up and downs. And if you can do that, and I mean, I had one 15-year-old this year. I mean, he was going 9 for 9, and then we do it again, 8 for 9. And it was like, wow, that's world class, fun to watch. So that's one, I think, confirming what Luke is saying. Pretty rare that I just hit 100 balls from the same spot over and over and over. I get bored after about 10 of them. Mix it up.
Are you gonna get on right now, Chili, and give us a?
Yeah, I can do that. Sure. Yeah, give me a second here. And let me see if I can get this set up, and we'll talk about the difference between chipping and pitching. And I know.
Now you do that for a second, and I'm gonna just run over. So the slide that just popped up, technology, and using technology to find strengths and weaknesses. So this is something I mentioned earlier tonight, but launch monitors such as TrackMan, FlightScope, SkyTrack, they're out there. There's models that are not as expensive. You can get your hands on too that are very accurate. So if you can get your hands on these, if a club you're playing at has them, or if your instructor has one, very helpful. I think they really tend to speed the process of learning for us and really help us to understand some information that is very valuable. So you ready to go over there?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
All right, we good, everybody? Let's see if you can see this.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. When it comes to those short game schools, here's kind of what I teach. I let people hit 5 shots and I watch how they do it. And the typical person in the class, and you can see from here, I'm just going to hit it into there. If they're hitting like a 20, 30 foot shot, they grab something with loft and they go like this. They go. And can you see that? Kind of, I scooped it, didn't go very far. What do you see that? I'll do it again. Okay. So what I'll do is if they scoop it and leave it short, or they scoop it and hit it in the belly and rip it over the green, I will let them know there's a far easier way to do this. So if you're one of the kids on here that's kind of new to this and you're like, hey, I really got to break 90 this year, pay attention to this one, because this one's pretty important. I have everybody put a ruler down, and can you all see this ruler right here? See it? So the ruler is there, and I'm going to say this end of the ruler is the golf ball. And if a player is tilting the shaft back and scooping, watch what happens to the yardstick here. You see that? And that's not very good. So if you hit a yardstick and you scoop it, that's the ball riding up the face. And this is going to be getting a little ahead, but the best players in the world lean this shaft and lower the flight of the ball. They launch it low with high RPMs. When you think that you do this and scoop it, that's actually improper. There's not a lot of experts doing that, okay? It applies in a bunker, and there's times in a lob shot. But a standard shot around the green, I'll have them do this. I'll say, grab a 7-iron, and they grab a 7, and I'll say, do 3 things for me. Put that ball in the back of your stance, okay? Lean the shaft forward, and then I have them keep their forward wrist. Can you all see this? Kind of straight. And the shaft stays leaning, and then watch the yardstick. See how it just slid along the ground? So I used to teach for ESPN schools, and that was probably the coolest drill that one of the pros was doing, that I kind of, you know, swiped it from him. I was like, this is brilliant. So it's about learning to control that lead wrist, keep the shaft leaning. And in a little bit here, you're going to start to understand that having shaft lean with your wedges is how you compress the ball, squish it, and actually create spin. So what I would say, and you don't have to, but I'd say, raise your hand if you want to hit the ball and spin it backwards. Okay. We all like that. That looks really cool. Okay. You do have to have enough power and speed to create spin, but you don't create spin by doing this and lifting it. And I get a lot of people that think that's how you do it. And that's just not, it's just not the right way. So John or Luke, I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, let me hop on for a second, interrupt you. So we have a question here. From your experience, do you think all of those devices, launch monitors, are accurate, or do they usually go farther or shorter for distances, or does it differ between sources? So different.
Is that going back to the launch monitor question, probably?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're mostly pretty good, especially for wedges. TrackMan and Foresight are the best. Foresight's the most accurate with wedges. TrackMan's awesome too.
Yeah. The one thing, and I don't want to sound like a ball snob, but I am a ball snob when it comes to hitting on a TrackMan or a launch monitor. If I hit our range balls here at the town course, I believe they're top flight, and a range ball is a more durable ball, right? So if I hit it with a driver, it's essentially the same. The RPMs are within 500. But when I hit 60-degree wedges with Pro Vs, I'm launching the ball at 25 degrees on average, maybe 26 every time after time. If I hit one of our range balls, all of a sudden they start shooting up at 32, 34, and then they come off knuckly. So what I've found is the TrackMan, the Flight Scope, the GC quads are all extremely accurate, but the ball will make a big difference, a big difference. So often when I'm hitting on a TrackMan, and I'm pretty picky, I'm using the same exact ball that I play with, not a range ball. And I don't hit different kinds. I don't hit, 5-year-old Pro Vs. I use the Pro Vs that are the latest model. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Chili, I mean, I noticed this. You could speak to probably if you want the ball to grab and have spin, you need to have clean grooves, don't you, Chili? Or modern
100%.
clubs?
Yes, I actually am guilty. I own a groove cleaner, and you get in there, you can sharpen those things up pretty good. And my guess is after about 2 years, if I have a club, those grooves could be bordering on,
You stop
what
it
do you
fast,
call
Chili. We know that.
Yeah, I've had people ask me what's going on, and I'm like, well, my grooves are sharp, but yeah, it definitely matters. One of the another cool thing I heard, and it was really funny. I heard a pro once say that you don't need grooves, and you would get more backspin if we didn't have grooves. And I was like, well, that's about the dumbest thing I ever heard. Well, and when I heard this, I thought about it. Does anybody knows how car tires work? If you have like a tread in your tire, there's less surface area. So drag racers use a slick. Okay, a slick has no treads. There's more surface area. So the comment was actually correct, but the problem is there's grass that gets between, and grass is wet. And when you have water, that lubricates the face. So if you were hitting bone dry, maybe off a tee every time with a grooveless club, it might actually be able to get you more spin, but that's not realistic. You're always playing in the grass. So that was one thing we argued about that for a couple of years out here. And so, take that for what it's worth.
Clean your clubs, everybody. Irons, full swings, like very important. I see that quite a bit. People come to the range and the clubs are dirty, and you just can't expect the same performance from your clubs when they're full of dirt, or grass.
Chili, can you show us, maybe we're working right into this, just like setup changes for hitting it high and low? Because I know you're really good at that. I think that's really key.
Sure. If and it's funny, I don't think I'm going to be able to hit that many shots here, but I'm going to grab a 60 degree club, and if I hit a full 60, that ball should go out. It launches at around 25. It's going to come down and land at 89 to 90 yards and maybe roll out to 91. So when I'm playing my stock shot, 89 in the air, 91 total, but I'm hitting the ball, and what people like, I get hassled for it. They go, man, you put that ball back. I have the ball inside my back foot, the handle leaning forward. And can you see the shaft here? Everybody see that? And what's crazy is I start here, and when I come back to impact, I'm trying to mirror that exactly. So I'm not trying to make this go as fast as I can. I'm trying to squish that ball with this shaft angle the same every time. And that's how I can control the launch. So if your question was, how do you hit it higher? I will move the ball from my back foot all the way up to my front foot, knowing that I'm going to have less lean. I'm going to put probably more spin because I'm going to have a little more angle on the face, but it's going to go higher and not as far. So if I'm trying to hit 175 and stop it, I won't go softer from here. I'll actually move the ball forward, have less shaft lean, and I can pretty much floor this thing and come back to here and only get 75 out of it, where normally it's my 90 yarder. Does that make sense?
How often do you try to put backspin on the ball? Because I get that question all the time. Somebody's thinking it out there. I think it's more about prediction than it is trying. What do you do?
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to just compress the ball and start it on the right launch. So I'm seeing my launch angle, and when I hit it, I just kind of know that it's going to come off at around 10,000, 10,500 on average off a mat in here. If I'm hitting in the rough, there's a lot of times where I'm planning on it not to spin and to go farther. But if you were to say, how often do you throw one behind the pin and spin it back? That's really rare. That's when there's a a pin on maybe a par 3 and it's short and there's a wall behind it and the greens are fast. So if I do hit it hard, it'll hit and come back. But I think that's pretty high level. You know, you got to really be on to think, I'm going to spin this 11,000, hit it 10 yards past and rip it back. That's senseless.
So wouldn't you say most efforts to try to add spin is ridiculous? Just try to hit it solid and predict spin. So that more.
Yeah. Square contact is where it's at. I asked, remember Les Bolstad? They named the golf course after him at the U. Mr. Bolstad was hitting on the range once when I was in college. And I walked up and I said, Mr. Bolstad, can I ask you a question? And he said, yeah. I go, how do you spin it backwards? And he just looked at me, and it wasn't with disgust, but he just went, square contact. Like, he's just like, just square contact. And I was like, well, my coach in college or junior college said it was a wrist thingy. And he's like, no, just hit it on the sweet spot and hit it square. And I couldn't really agree more with that now. And that was, 25 years ago. You're just trying to hit it square on the face, have the shaft lean, and squish it and send it out low with high spin.
So as you guys are talking about that, I'm going to give you one question, but I'm going to transition into this page to kind of see how close the tour pros hit it. Question is, do you lean the shaft forward on other irons as much as wedges?
No. Answer is no. So if I'm hitting, if you think about a driver shaft lean, the ball is forward in your stance and you're kind of catching it maybe on the way up a little bit. There isn't a lot of shaft angle there. And I don't know if you guys would agree that there's almost zero. It's just, it's pretty much straight up and down. And then as the ball starts moving back in your stance, and again, I'm showing you the lefty version. I probably should do it righty. As the ball goes back, you just naturally get more shaft lean. So it's very rare that I'm hitting a 7-iron with as much lean as a 60-degree wedge, unless I'm trying to hit it under a branch or something. But you can look it up. I know TrackMan's got the shaft lean. They have shaft lean angles for wedges, 7-irons, and drivers, I think, for tour players. So you could find that if you look that up. But yeah, it changes with each club. Did that answer that?
Yeah, I think so. And, we'll go into this stat page here. What's important, I think, in these pages is just some knowledge for us to realize, 20 yards to a pin, average proximity that they're hitting it, 8.5 feet, 94.7 greens percentage hit. So as you run up and down this list from 100 yards, 18.5 feet, if you're watching the best players yesterday when Max Homa won, and one of the best, I think, wedge players ever on the LPGA Tour, Annika Sorensen's back in action this next weekend. Check that out. She's a Hall of Famer. But you think they're hitting it about 5 feet all the time, 5 feet, 3 feet, and you think they're just amazing. But as we see these numbers, we want to let you know, from 160 yards, 27.5 feet, that's the best players in the world. Maybe not the hottest players in the world on Sunday on the TV, but the best on average. And we get a lot of people, and I'm sure Eric and Luke, you'd agree with me, thinking that, from 140, I should be hitting it to 10 feet all the time. And it's not realistic. If you're hot and you're hitting it great on any given day, you can hit it a little closer. But I think that's a big misconception. And I'd like to see players understand that to take advantage of the places, that 100, 180, those are the spots you want to try to hit a little closer, make some putts. So yeah, you see that a little bit, guys?
I'm not hearing Luke.
I think we got you muted, Luke.
Sorry. Yeah, I think pros don't hit it quite as close as we think, and they're real strategic about where they miss. So that's part of the data as well. But yeah, should we fast forward to some short game technique and get into some of that stuff?
Sure. Let me just talk briefly, because I can go through can you go back to that first slide there? I'll be real quick with it. So there is something called a combine. And I think Flight Scope does it. I'm sure that all these launch monitors have this type of thing, but they can actually find your strengths and your weaknesses So this is just a sample page. So if there's parents out there and they're like, what is that? Well, there's numbers on here from 60 yards, the average distance from 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. And I know it's pretty small, my eyes, I can't see it from here, but that was one of the best combines that I ever did. And if you look at the proximities there, those are pretty good compared to what we just looked at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if you go one more slide, this is how I use it. If you look at that, the red numbers up top, that top left number is 60 yards. My average score was an 80 percentile, and a tour player would get about an 85 average. And I was averaging 10 feet from the pin, okay? If you go down to 70, 80, 90 yards, and you slide over to the green, I was averaging 5 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet. So when I look at that, even though that was a really good combine score, my weakness was my 60-yard shot. And if you go one more slide here, go one more than that, sorry. Here's a typical player that comes in that says, hey, Eric, you know, I feel like I should break 80 most days, but I don't. And I'll have them hit shots. And if you look at that, you have their 60-yard average is a 29 percentile. So let's just say they were hitting it. They're missing greens from 60 yards. And then they were averaging, what, 65-ish from 70, 80, 90. And then when you go over there at 140, they were averaging 82 percentile. They're almost as good as a tour player from 140, but they're terrible from 60 yards. So the next question I asked this player, whether he's a high school kid or an adult, I go, hey, you know, on a 360-yard par 4, are you going to hit driver? And, you know, most kids are like, yeah, I'm going to hit driver. The closer I get, the better. Well, don't hit driver to 60 yards if that's where you're not very good. Let's think about maybe hitting it to 80, 90, 100, and you could go all the way back to 140. And probably your odds of hitting it closer get higher farther away, which is very counterintuitive. And that's some of the stuff that I've learned from TrackMan is I know that I'm okay from 60, 50, 70, but when I get to 90, 100, that's when I get it really good. So I play to 90 and 100 yards on purpose and stay away from those shorter shots. And I can show you on TrackMan with a test if you want, because it's about 15 shots. Do you want to play that video on distance control?
Yeah. Well, let's get you on and show a
Sure.
couple techniques and
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
you're talking about, and then we'll get back to that.
All right. So let me just take 3 minutes here. Now, I know that the screen is probably far away, but what I'm going to do, and I'm going to poke some fun at, I'm going to just say, here's a 15-year-old boy who comes to me, who hits the ball in the range. And I'm like, wow, this guy hits it better than me. What do you shoot? You ever break 80? And the kid's like, no, I'll never break 80. And I go, well, show me your short game. So the kid grabs and this is a 25-yard shot. Can everybody see that on the screen there?
Yeah.
It's a 25-yard shot. He grabs a 60. He opens the face and goes straight up in the air. And you see that I scooped it. Can you see where that ball is? Now on here, you might not be able to see it, but that is 13 yards from that pin. And on a 25-yard shot, that's unacceptable, okay? So if I can get him to go, hey, man, lower that thing down a little bit and get him to maybe make that a bad shot. Can you all see it? Can you see it rolling up there? Can you see the ball?
Yep.
So distance from the hole is 15 inches. That's a lot better when you lean the shaft and hit it low. Even better than that, guys, is old man golf, right? This is how I do it. And now I'm creeping up on 50. So I'll take 7-iron. And what I ask everybody in my class is I'll go, when I hit this ball, just tell me if it has a chance of going in or not. And when I hit 60-degree shots, I'll hit it. Nobody will say anything. I'll hit it again. Then third time, maybe like, oh, it's got a chance. When I grab 7-iron to a 25-yarder, so if you can see that, oh, it grabbed. Sorry. Gotta hit it a little harder. All I got to do is get it on the green and started to the hole. Everybody see that there?
Mm-hmm.
So I've done this on TrackMan, I've done this outside. Let me hit 100 shots with a 60-degree wedge from 25 yards, and I will make 1 or 2. You give me a 7-iron from 20, 25 yards, and I'm going to make 5 or 6 of them. And if I can make 3 times more with a 7-iron, I'm going to use a 7-iron. Because it just comes down to, I want to make shots from around the green, not just get them inside of 15 feet. And again, I don't know if you can see that on there, but I'm always trying to get people to play lower loft, just get it on the green and let it roll, chip and run. It's so much easier unless you're handcuffed, unless you're short-sided, or maybe you're at a course where the greens are kind of, you got swales that you got to chip over. But I'm all about getting it on the green and letting it roll. John?
Yeah, I agreed. I think that's very important. People like the high ones, the spinning ones, but whatever gets our ball in the hole faster in this game is the way to go. And, I'm going to send a shout out quick to everybody because we're kind of close to time here. Any questions? So go ahead and answer, throw any questions on there. We'd be happy to answer. And right now we got a video up, but I want to make sure we get to the rest of our crew here and see if anybody has any questions regarding anything that we've talked about tonight. A little, Eric, actually, let's skip the video and let's talk a little bit quick. I'll answer questions, but let's talk a little bit about the wedge, just the design of the wedge for people that, don't
Sure.
understand that and the importance of the tool we have and how to use it.
Right on. All right, so just for this, so I tell all my people in my short game class, I'm not the brightest bulb. So what I do is I do show and tell. Does anybody know what bounce on a golf club is? And if you don't have a lot of bounce, can everybody see that line on the bottom of that club? Imagine this is the ground and this club comes in. There is no bounce here. You see by the bill of my hat. If I open it, you might start to see that front edge come up. Everybody see that? So this club has no bounce. I took a grinder to it and I ground it off. Can you see that? How it's just chopped across there? So this club has 10 degrees of bounce right here. And you'll see that it's actually rounded on the bottom and that front edge sits up a little bit. So bounce, here's the one thing I really got to let everybody know. If you're a good listener and you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to Eric and I'm going to play the ball back and use a 7-iron or a wedge with a lot of shaft lean, you got to be careful that you keep that front edge from digging into the ground. So when you're doing a chip and run, where do you put the ball in your stance? You move it back. And I move the ball way back because I want to hit the ball first. And then if my club hits the ground and the front edge sticks, the ball's already gone. It doesn't even matter. So I would be doing you a huge disservice to say, hey, put the ball back, lean the shaft forward, and not let you know the reason we put it back is so that we're taking all the bounce off and our club's not going to slide nicely through the turf. So it's going to go and grab. So if the ball's back and you hit the ball first, who cares? When you're playing those pitch shots, then you have a little, I just kind of call it, that thing will allow it to slide through the turf. I don't know. How do you explain it, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like that. And, in the bunker, we'll just go over quick. That bounce is basically our friend. We want that in abundance, mostly in the bunker, unless your ball is maybe on a downhill slope or plugged, then we can use that leading edge to go dig it out a little bit. But if you are unsure about how to use your wedge, short game is probably around the greens is probably very hard for you. If you're listening to Eric and kind of to people who talk about this, short game can be a lot easier if you understand how to use your tool. Okay. And that's your club. So understanding bounce, leading edge, it's not hard. It takes a minute to kind of figure it out, but that's something that can vastly improve your short game very quickly with just some understanding of how to go about doing that. So Yeah, and we'll get to
Is there
the
a
next page.
I had a question just popped up
Oh, we
there.
got a
What was that?
question?
Yeah, sorry. Find it?
No, I didn't see it. I had a couple more, but
Yeah, send that question in again. I saw it and then I clicked and it disappeared.
okay. So we're gonna wrap up here. We're right at our time. I know Eric threw a nice little picture here. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Eric. You can kind of finish our night off and say thank you to everybody and let them know about BORAD here.
Yeah, just know that all of us, part of this impact group, use launch monitors for good. What we do is we want to find our players' strengths and we want to find their weaknesses so we can work on our weaknesses, but you want to play to your strengths. So what I teach all my competitive golfers is, hey, maybe you're not so good from 50, 60, 70 yards, but you're really good from 80, 90, and 100 when you're swinging those lob wedges and those sand wedges full. And even the little guys that are 12 and 13, a full swing with a 60 might be 60 yards total. So maybe they're not so good from 40 yards, but we find what you're good at so that you can play to those yardages. And then when you can wedge it close and one putt, that's how you make birdies. That's how you make a ton of more pars. And it's how you really eliminate the big mistakes. So I always tell my kids that are competitive, we play chess, we don't play checkers. Okay. And it's just a little inside joke.
Yeah, so we really appreciate you coming out, joining us tonight. Any questions, let us know. The videos are saved over at the website, and we'd be happy to help you out, happy to answer questions. We look forward to seeing you soon again with the series here, and have a great night. Enjoy some golf on TV and get ready for the season. It's just around the corner.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Cool.